Okay, I think we could start the webinar right now. First, I would like to say hello to everybody, and I'd like to take this moment and first thank you all for taking the time in attending this webinar, your product development cycle simplified by Tecan. My name is Han Lee, and I'm the Senior Product Manager in the Components Robotics Group. I will be your host. Our agenda in this webinar is to briefly explain who Tecan is, go over some capabilities and technologies in liquid handling, introduce you to our highly configurable liquid handling components, the Omni Flex, illustrate an online configuration tool that we believe can help you in developing a platform specific to what you're looking for, and finally, to quickly go over some possible modules that may fit your need. That said, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker tonight, Claudio Bui, who will be presenting this to you all. Claudio is our marketing manager for the partnering business in the components marketing team. Claudio leads a team whose primary function is to closely work with customers like yourself to develop new concepts and proposals based on a thorough analysis of your specific requirement. He has over 28 years of experience in liquid handling and has started in Tecan in 1990 in R&D, developing components. In 2005, he joined the marketing team. So that said, I will hand it over to Claudio to present, and give me 1 second, Claudio, and the ball will be on your court.
Thanks, Han. Tecan has been a global leader in the laboratory automation space for over 40 years. We have a lot to offer to accelerate, automate, and enhance process in diagnostic and life science labs. While our platforms are very flexible and can be used for almost any application, Tecan focuses in a few application areas like NGS, immunoassays, and mass spectrometry. Headquartered in Switzerland near Zurich, Tecan employs now over 1,500 employees worldwide. Tecan has 6 R&D and manufacturing sites. The headquarters is located in Switzerland with 2 additional sites in Germany and Austria. In the US, the 2 sites are located in California. The Software Competence Center is also in Germany. In addition, there are a number of sales offices located around the globe, and we use numerous distributors to serve a total of 52 countries. Quality has been a major driver at Tecan. We have a global implemented quality management system. Each manufacturing site has their localized version of this management system and is ISO 13485 compliant. 3 of the sites have successfully completed an FDA inspection. The sales and service organization acquired a matrix certification for offices in Europe, Australia, and China.
And just to add, for those who are playing in the regulated environment, our established quality system that Claudio just mentioned at the various Tecan sites can help you facilitate or lower your risk, your development risk, if and when you plan on achieving regulated certifications.
Yes, certainly. So, let's jump into the beginning of the presentation. First, we're going to cover the MFC board, or the multifunction control board. Then we're going to jump into a few process security features the Omni has to offer, command interface, communication, cap piercing, and fixed probe and disposable tips. So let's get started.
Starting again with the multifunction control board. As mentioned before, this board has core capability that is generally needed when in a laboratory automation instrument for liquid handling. So we're going to go through some of the key functionalities it offers. First, it has a couple of mini wash connections. Those are used for small, like fast wash type pump. That can be used for draining a wash station, or for pumping liquid through a wash station, or simply to prime the system with system liquid as needed. Lamp output ports can be used to just turn on various lights inside the instrument. There is 2 of them. We use it on the Omni Flex, for example, to light an LED strip that lights up the work table. Fan outputs, there's 3 of them available that are controlled to basically turn on and off fans. These ports do come with the tachometer input, which is a feedback to verify that the fan is actually running. Status indicator lights can be controlled from here. In general, that's red, green, and yellow, but can also be changed with different pulse lengths and so forth. A barcode reader, or essentially an RS-232 port, which we use currently for controlling a barcode reader. We have currently 1 type implemented, but it's relatively easy to add additional types. So if you have a need for a barcode reader in the system, that can definitely be connected through here. This connector is the on-off and pause button interface that you will see later in the as part of the Omni Flex system. So the power switch in the front of the instrument is actually just a small 5-volt signal. So you can turn on and off the power in the entire system without needing to route 110 volts power to or 220 volts to the front of the instrument. DCA and DCB accessory ports are just generic ports that have relatively a lot of power. So we use them to power cooling systems, onboard, on-deck cooling devices, for example. And they come very flexibly with 24 volts and 12 volts, as well as analog inputs and outputs and communication to the rest of the system. These few connectors there are used to connect pumps or other Tecan devices. This is kind of a generic connector system that Tecan uses in many of their devices, which contains 24 volts and CAN interface. The board also contains 4 door lock interfaces. These are generally pretty well-rounded door locks, which come with 3 input sensing IOs to measure different states, and then you can act on appropriately. So we'll go in more detail on door locks later. It does come with full error handling capability, making sure that the locks in fact are locked properly. Reagent management, 6 or 8 of those inputs shown here can be used to connect like a float switch or any other input method to monitor various bottles. 2 of them are output ports. And then we have just general purpose analog inputs that can be used again for various different tasks. And last but not least, an auxiliary CAN IO for additional CAN communication as needed. As you can see, there's a lot of capability not mentioned in this presentation. Also, as you can see in the middle, the big black dot there is a buzzer, which can also be used for audio feedback within the instrument. And we've had some experience with that. It's actually pretty loud, but it can be changed in volume as needed. So, moving forward to the first of process security capabilities, one of which you might be familiar with is liquid detection capability. So just briefly looking at, if you do not have liquid level detection, then how do you aspirate liquid from a well if you don't know what the liquid level is? So the only way that is generally possible is you have to position the probe to the bottom of a well, and then aspirate as much liquid as you need, hoping that there is enough liquid in the well. This causes has a couple of side effects. One of them is you wet the probe on the outside, which now means you have to wash it more vigorously to clean it for the next sample. And the second is varying liquid levels also give you a variance in accuracy and precision of your pipetting performance. And you're generally unable to measure the fluid volume, which means you have no idea when reagents, for example, run out. So now, if you are using a feature like Tecan CLLD or capacitive liquid level sensing technology, you can now measure the surface of the liquid, and that does minimize contamination of the probe, and it does result in better accuracy and precision of your pipetting cycle. It also allows you to essentially monitor how much reagent you have in each well. So if one of your reagents gets lower and lower and approaches, let's say, the bottom 10% or so, or the bottom 20%, you can let the user know that it will soon be time to replace that reagent, and therefore you can replace reagent in a planned fashion rather than just letting it run out and interrupt the process.
So to add on to this, we believe that this will be ideal for customers who deal with precious samples or limited samples, as they cannot afford to waste it, or customers who need to be cost conscious about their reagent use, minimizing failures and having to perform repeats. So I think this would be very ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. The next process security feature is pressure monitoring with the ADP. The ADP has built in a pressure sensor that can be used to monitor the pressure inside the probe, inside the disposable tip during the aspirate cycle. The data from this can generally be evaluated in two ways. One is externally, that means by the host computer, and the ADP can stream upwards through the Omni system up to 1,000 data points per second, which is quite a good resolution for this purpose. A secondary possibility is the ADP has now an onboard evaluation capability that essentially evaluates 23 different air conditions within each aspirate and will generate an error when the parameters or the expected conditions were not met. So I think that's a very nice feature that increases process security in general. The next item on process security is closed loop positioning. And the Omni has a closed loop positioning in the X and Y axis with linear encoders and can monitor approaches the end position in a closed loop fashion. In the Z axis, it uses a rotary encoder, and there can monitor the position closed loop through the entire motion profile. It's for the Z-axis has more complicated motions, so it's than the X and the Y, so it's more important to be in full control there. So recapping briefly what open loop positioning is, generally you have a known start position, you have a known target position, and then you're asking the motor to move via a controller input. But do you necessarily know whether your target position has been reached? No, not really. The arrival is not really known. We just trust that the robot has moved the appropriate number of steps and reached the target. Now, using a closed loop method, we have a linear encoder on the axis. We again have start position, target position, and the instruction to move. But this time we get a feedback from the linear encoder that tells us that the robot actually reached the position. This allows for more precise and reliable positioning of the probe, and it's definitely a very useful process security feature.
So Claudio, is this closed loop positioning architecture unique to the Omni?
Well, many manufacturers of laboratory automation systems offer closed loop systems. Most of them use rotary encoders. The Omni Flex is utilizing linear encoders, as mentioned, which provides higher process security and better positional accuracy. Okay. And the next item is door lock sensors. As mentioned at the MSC board, we do offer door locks, not just the capability on the electronics, but the door locks do help secure the sample and the user from being tampered with or injured. And the particular set of door locks that we offer include two different sensors. One of them is monitoring the door itself. So before the door lock can be activated and asked to lock, the door has to be closed. This is monitored via the firmware that's on the MSC board. So the locking action cannot actually be initiated until the door is closed. And then the secondary sensor inside the door lock is also measuring that the latch has been actively engaged, therefore ensuring that the lock is now properly closed. This does all come with air handling as needed for this operation.
And just for my clarification, and probably for some in the audience, Claudio, is this a safety interlock?
No, it is not a safety interlock. This is because our locking mechanism is controlled via firmware and does not interrupt the power to the system. There is a very particular meaning to safety interlock, but these locks are generally accepted as a means to protect sample and users from this instrument. Now I'm going towards the command interface. The Omni has a unique command interface in that it can not only control the individual motor drivers. So from the host computer, you can send commands to each individual motor driver as desired. It also comes with a higher level command set that takes on some of the important functionality that is generally needed in laboratory automation systems. For example, liquid level detection is a command that will utilize capacitive level detection or pressure-based level detection as offered with the ADP, or in combination even, to detect liquid levels, and moving the arm in coordination to detect that liquid and stop the access. So that can be a very involved command to integrate if you are writing it all independently from a command to command point of view in a system. The Omni provides this as an already ready to go feature with air handling. The same thing is true for picking and ejecting disposable tips. It allows you to basically pick up or define a pickup location, and then this command picks up the tip with the appropriate force, which with the z-axis that the Omni provides, you can define and vary the force that is used to pick up and eject the tip, and it will repeatedly apply just the right pickup force as needed, which again, if that had to be implemented independently, would be a very cumbersome and elaborate functionality to implement. Coordinated motion for arm movements is also available. The Omni can be configured very flexibly so so that different axes are associated with one arm. And so there are now arm commands available that will control a whole arm regardless of how many axes are associated with that arm, and move it from one position to the other position. It also includes some of the Z-axis motion. So, for example, tip pickup is if on one arm there is one Z axis defined, it will only operate as one Z-axis. If there is two Z-axis defined, it will automatically execute the tip pickup for both Z-axis given by that one arm movement command. I think a very worthwhile feature. This also allows communication with other Cavro devices like pumps and other Tecan modules that Tecan offers. The Omni also comes with a configuration software tool, and that's where it comes in very handy when you set up the instrument. So you can, for example, view the configuration information, or you can flexibly group all of these axes into arms. By default, the Omni is configured the way it's been ordered, but this arm grouping can also be done in the field with this configuration software. Calibration of the coordinate system relative to the work table can be calibrated with the system. CIB firmware updates can be undertaken. And a really neat feature is the system imager. It allows you to capture an image of all the configurations within the Omni Flex into a file that you can store on the host computer. And then when, for example, you have an issue, let's just say you need to replace a motor driver board, you then don't need to go in and figure out how to recalibrate that one motor driver, set all the parameters properly. You can just restore the image from that file that was saved on the system, and therefore saving a lot of time trying to figure out how to get this all back to the way it was before. And then there's a couple of additional things, configurations that report configuration settings that basically just report all of the settings that are inside the Omni. Moving on to communication. The Omni communicates, can be communicated to in two ways. One of them is via Ethernet, and the other is RS-232. Communication all goes through what we call the CIB, or the Communication Interface Board, which has a few tasks. It has an embedded command set that is also available. But it also converts all external communication coming in to what is commonly used internally to the Omni Flex. And internally to the Omni Flex, we use CAN bus communication interface. And that is not only true for all the motor drivers, which we call ACB boards, as you can see here. It is also true for communicating with the multifunction control board, as well as all the pumps and other modules, Tecan modules that are connected to it. As mentioned earlier as well, you can also communicate with a barcode reader to make it convenient and have a single communication interface to the instrument.
And Claudio, does this always have to operate in a 3-axis?
No, it does not have to only operate in 3-axis. 3-axis just happens to be the most common. But as mentioned earlier, we do offer dual Z-axis, for example, which then means you have already 4 axes in total for this one system. And in this case, then would be configured as one arm. Of course, then the Omni offers capability to also mount a second arm and control a second arm. And if that's, for example, a 3-axis arm, that would add 3 additional axes, making a total of 7. On a diagram like this, they all would be in the same line, so they are all communicating through the same CAN bus system. A total of 16 axes can be controlled in this way. Thank you. Another interesting feature is our cap piercing solutions. We've had now a number of years that we've good experience using cap piercing probes, and this is in particular when using closed tube sample tubes, so blood sample tubes with the thick rubber caps on top. And in general, there is a couple of different ways one can deal with those type of tubes in an instrument. Either you decap the tubes, or you pierce through the cap and you aspirate the blood in that way. Opening tubes is generally relatively expensive to integrate. It also opens the possibility of now spilling the sample and so forth. If you can effectively aspirate the blood samples through the cap, not needing to remove it as you can with the cap piercing probes that we have, that obviously simplifies the process and is definitely more secure and less prone to spills in that way. The Omni robot does have a high amount of force available that allows you to do this process year-round without any detriment to the robot. We've tested this for years at this point. Now going a little bit more into the actual Omni Flex itself, looking at some of the features there. The Omni Flex is a modular design. So starting from the basic robotic module, which we've already talked a little bit about, you have X, Y, and Z axes available that can be mixed and matched in a lot of different ways. You can integrate pumps with that as well. We now also have what we call a chassis for it. So it's a base frame structure that the Omni robot can be mounted into. And this frame structure comes with a lot of different options and features. So one of them is being shields. It comes with skins, so that the structural piece is on the inside, but the skins, what we refer to as skins, is on the outside, and that can be customized. So we do offer a set of standard skins, but of course the customer can anytime change the look of the instrument by changing the skins on the outside. Additional pumps can be mounted underneath inside the work table. The work table itself, by default, it is comes with the Tecan deck pin set, but a lot of customers choose to customize that work table. The air pipe header is an option that comes under the universal Z-axis, as well as the gripper, and shown already the multifunction control board, which is mounted just on the inside there of the side post. Door locks, as mentioned earlier, and wash station for the different probe options and Z-axis that are available. So this is altogether a flexible set of tools that's available to you. Selection of a product portfolio that's been proven and been on the market for a while, and it's very configurable to exactly the needs you have. So this simplifies prototyping, it simplifies testing, and it simplifies regulatory processes. The Omni is very easy to integrate. It offers, as you can see in the picture on the top left, it has not only mounting holes on the side by which the robot can be mounted into a system, It also has the Bosch profile rail at the bottom of the extrusion, which allow you to either mount the robot to something, or you can mount things to the robot via those interfaces. And here's just a few examples on how these mounting options can be used to mount the robot. Of course, how do you know what exactly to order? Well, we did develop a configuration tool that allows you to exactly choose the configuration that is best for you. So the tool is accessible through through our website. It can also be downloaded to an iPad from the iTunes store, and offers generally these options. So you can select basic Omni, and as you can see here under the frame category, currently selected no frame. You can now vary the length of the axis in each direction based on available components. So, for example, you can choose the x-axis to be wider, and the 3D model, which actually in the tool itself can be rotated, will adapt automatically to the selections you've made. You can then also select what we call an open frame. This is advantageous for cases where you have a lot of need for room on the work table itself. So there's a lot of space underneath the x-axis that's all available for you to use. If you have more need for mounting pumps and things like that, but workspace underneath the arm doesn't need to be so tremendous, you can use what we call the closed frame solution. And of course, then you can add the previously mentioned skins to it, the shields and locks and so forth, to make the system exactly to what you need. You do not need to configure it to this full extent. You can basically order it at the simplest level of just a single axis or multiple axis. In any case, the selection that you end up with then produces a bill of material. And so on the left here, you see the part numbers that make up this exact model that is showing in the 3D version. And you can now interact with the salesperson, your local sales representative, to get a quotation for this. The same tool also offers similar views for some of or configurators for some of the other products, or simply a little more information about each of our pumps that we offer. Some of the modules that you're probably familiar with, coming from Tecan Systems or Cavro Components Group, is the pump technologies. We generally have two categories of pumps available: air displacement pumps, which the ADP is the module of choice, or we have liquid displacement pumps. We're most well known for syringe pumps, as you see in the middle. We have also just added a piston pump to our portfolio. It just depends on the specific needs you have, which of these pumping technologies best suits your needs. Of course, then there are also other modules and capabilities. Tecan has a long history of developing modules, all of which are available to you if needed. Looking at the middle top, there is what we call the loading ID, which is essentially a sample input device with barcode reading capability. It can connect to the Omni Flex. We have a centrifuge, which comes with different rotor types, one with plates and one more for sample tubes. Then the number of the various different pumps, as well as the barcode reader we've already mentioned. In this case, it's mounted to the arm and is reading top down. And we have capabilities and technologies around cooling on the work table, whether that's plate or reagent cooling as needed. So what does this mean to do? What are you looking for? Whether it is a simple Z-axis as shown at the very far left, or a 2-axis or a 3-axis, or we have a lot of different things already available off the shelf, as seen by the selection there. But of course, off-the-shelf things don't always meet the exact needs you have, and customizations can be made. Whether those customizations are done by us or by you, it does not really matter. It's we're very open and flexible in working with you. We want to make sure that you get your platform the way you need it. So, the Tecan partnering team is not looking to just make a one-time sale. Our aim is to be your long-term partner in providing liquid handling solutions to your specific needs. We have over 40 years of experience and technical know-how backed with proven reliable products of the highest quality. Tecan can help you shorten your development time, which ultimately helps you get your product to market faster. Our engineering and applications experts will support you across the entire R&D cycle from initial concept through feasibility, prototyping, and development. We are committed to building a partnership with you and that you can rely on year after year. At the end of the day, we would like you to leverage our liquid handling expertise so that you can focus on your core competence.
So on our last slide here, first, thank you, Claudia, for the presentation. And for those who would like more information or have questions about the materials that's in the webinar, or would like to speak to your local rep if interested in scheduling a live demo, or what we often do here is at Tecan is schedule a lunch and learn at your site. Please contact us at the email address that you see on the screen, and we will surely get back to you on that. And for those on the webinar who are interested in downloading our family portfolio brochure, you can scan on the QR code that's provided here as well, as this will take you directly to the brochure for download. If you're interested in using our configuration tool, which I encourage you to use, online or offline on a tablet with an app, scan that QR code as well. And for those who are interested in reading our blogs or receiving blogs from Tecan, there's a blog registration that you can sign up for as well. And there is a QR code that has been simplified for you to take advantage of, and links there. So with that said, we are now at the end of our webinar. So I'd like to take the time here and thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. And we look forward to hearing from everybody. Thank you very much, and have a great day.